It's Fischer versus Spassky, a classic clash of legends. We're diving into a Ruy Lopez, one of the most storied and complex openings in all of chess, and we see the standard moves of the Spanish game. White stakes a claim in the center, black mirrors, and the knights and bishops fly out to their classic squares. White gets the king to safety by castling and brings the rook to the e-file. Black responds by kicking the bishop and preparing to expand on the queen side. And Fischer plays the perfect move, bishop to b3. This is the only way to keep a solid advantage, tucking the bishop away safely to support a central pawn push. We now enter the labyrinth of the closed Ruy Lopez. Both players castle and then begin the famous knight maneuver, rerouting the pieces for the long strategic battle ahead in the center. The maneuvering continues. Bishops find new diagonals, rooks eye the central files, and knights hop into position. Both sides are coiling their springs, preparing for the middle game explosion. White's bishop pokes at the knight, black kicks it back, and then the central tension breaks. After a pawn trade on d4, black challenges with c5, and white locks it all down with d5. Spassky has a big decision here, and he chooses a path that gives Fischer a clear advantage by losing control of the center. The stronger idea was to challenge on the queen side. The pawn pushes to a5. White's bishop slides to f4, the knight jumps to e5, the bishop takes that knight, and the pawn recaptures on e5. But back in the game, Spassky plays knight to b6, and this inaccuracy hands the initiative right over to Fischer. Fischer immediately capitalizes. The bishop flies to a5, clamping down on black's position. He shores up his queenside, brings the rooks into the game, and starts to squeeze Spassky's cramped pieces. A quiet moment as both players just reposition their pieces before the next critical phase. But here, Fischer makes an inaccurate move. Pawn to a3. This releases all the pressure he so carefully built up. The much better plan was queen to c1, which would have kept black's queenside completely tied down. Spassky immediately snaps off the pawn on a3, and white offers a trade of bishops, and Spassky unleashes a brilliant pawn sacrifice, pawn to f5. What a move! The idea is to blast open the lines against the white king, seizing the initiative with a stunning attack. Fischer is forced to react, and the white bishop takes the bishop on g7. Spassky's queen recaptures on g7, and now the threat against the white king is very, very real. Fischer is under fire and needs to find the correct defense. The attack is powerful, and one wrong step could be fatal. The best defense was to challenge black's control of the center. The knight drops back to d2, the f-pawn captures on e4, the knight recaptures the pawn on e4, the queen shifts to e5, and the other knight comes to g3 to defend. But in the game, Fischer plays knight to f4, an inaccurate move that fails to address the core of black's attack and puts white in serious trouble. And the attack crashes through. The pawn captures on e4, black's g-pawn kicks the knight away, and the queen repositions to f6, with all of Spassky's pieces now aimed at the white king. Fischer is looking for counterplay, but this next move is a complete blunder that loses the game on the spot. The only way to stay in the fight was to trade off the attacking bishop. The bishop could have taken the pawn on e4, the g-pawn takes the knight on h4. White's knight jumps to c7, the rook swings to e5, and the knight grabs the rook on a8. Instead of that complex line, Fischer plays queen to g4, and this is a disaster. It simply hangs the critical d5 pawn, and the entire white position collapses. Spassky doesn't hesitate for a second, and the knight snaps up the free pawn on d5. Fischer tries to complicate by grabbing a pawn, but after the exchanges, black's dominant position is clearer than ever. And now, Spassky's second brilliant move of the game, knight to b4, a stunning sacrifice. The point is to deflect white's queen away, guaranteeing that the passed a-pawn will race down the board and become a new queen. Fischer has no choice but to accept the sacrifice, but just as planned, Spassky's knight takes on c2, and the pawn sprints forward to a2, just one step from glory. After a few more moves, there's nothing white can do. The pawn marches to a1 and promotes to a brand new queen. Fischer finds an excellent defensive try. Rook takes the new queen on a1. This is the only move on the board that avoids an immediate checkmate and keeps the game going, even if just for a moment. Black's other queen recaptures on a1 with check, forcing the white king to h2, where it's trapped in a mating net. Spassky now demonstrates flawless technique. He gives a check, forces white's pawn structure to weaken, and brings his rook into the attack, methodically closing in for the final blow. And here, rook to a7 from Spassky. A fantastic, precise move, and the only one that secures the win by perfectly calculating and preparing for white's last-ditch counterplay. White throws in a desperate check on g5, but it's easily blocked by black's rook on g7. Fischer tries rook to h5, but this inaccuracy poses no real threat. It allows Spassky to consolidate his position and prepare the final wave of the attack, and Spassky's calm reply, queen to e6, simply neutralizes all of white's ideas. Fischer makes his final move, but it's an inaccuracy that only speeds up his demise. White's last real chance was to try and create complications by pushing the f-pawn. The pawn advances to e5. The queen moves to d-move. White's queen shifts to e2. The queen lands on e5, and the queens are traded off. But in the actual game, Fischer pushes the pawn to g4. This move is a mistake that allows black a decisive game-ending breakthrough, and that's the final blow. Spassky plays rook takes pawn on f4, shattering what's left of white's defenses and forcing immediate resignation. The attack is simply unstoppable. A spectacular victory for Spassky. Despite an early advantage for Fischer, Spassky's brilliant sacrificial ideas completely turned the tide, leading to a masterful attacking win for black.